Hey everyone, Chimney Swift here. Like many of you, over the past week or so, I've been playing a lot of Minecraft Dungeons, collecting tons of loot, testing different enchantments and items, etc. But one thing that I've noticed to be reliably challenging is the final boss fight against the Arch-Illager, who after you defeat him, becomes the Heart of Ender. If you're like me, you've probably died to the Heart of Ender quite a few times, and I'm guessing that you're here because you're looking for a foolproof strategy to beat him. Well, look no further because you're definitely in the right place. In this video, I'm going to show you my exact strategy for how to easily defeat the Heart of Ender in Minecraft Dungeons. So this goes without saying, but obviously you need to be able to reach the end of the Obsidian Pinnacle level in order to face off against the Arch-Illager. I only say that because the Obsidian Pinnacle is a challenging level in and of itself, so if you're struggling just to get through this level, then I'd recommend running through some of the earlier levels on maybe a higher difficulty to farm some better loot and increase your character's level. For me, the first time I beat the Heart of Ender, I was level 36, but that was mostly because I took my sweet time as I worked my way through the game. With the strategy I'm about to show you, you should be able to comfortably defeat the final boss on default difficulty when your character level is in the early to mid 20s range. Keep in mind though that your character level and power level are different. Power level is a more accurate representation of your character's overall potential as it factors in the power level of all the items you currently have equipped. Also, I should note that there will only be two difficulties that you can play Obsidian Pinnacle on, default 5 and default 6, so by the time you reach this level, you can choose accordingly based on your power level. I did so much grinding in other levels that by the time I reached the Obsidian Pinnacle for the first time, it recommended I play it on the default 6 difficulty. Either way though, the strategy to beating the Heart of Ender remains the same. So in order to break this down in an organized fashion, let's first look at my gear. Again, ignore the fact that my character here is level 44, just note my power level of 31. The reason my character level is so high is because I spent a lot of time playing and replaying this level as I was trying to develop this foolproof strategy, which even though I struggled through all the trial and error, I still ended up gaining lots of XP, which increased my level. This made it easier for me to develop this strategy as I was testing different pieces of gear, and because my level was so much higher, I had more enchantment points to work with, but I digress. So getting back to the gear, if you're looking to use this strategy, then I believe you should try to use items as close to what my character is wearing, with a few exceptions. Straight away here, I'll just say that whatever melee weapon you're using, stick with it. The easiest way to beat the Heart of Ender is with ranged attacks, so it honestly doesn't matter what melee weapon you have for this fight, as you basically don't need to use it. I have the unique glaive, the Gravebane, equipped, but again, that's not really that important. For armor, I'm wearing Reinforced Mail. This drops in the Fiery Forge and has some bonuses that really helped me clear this boss. First, it has a 35% damage reduction bonus, which means we'll be taking less damage if the boss does manage to get a hit on us. The next bonus is that it also has a 30% chance to negate hits. Again, another defensive-oriented perk that can help keep us alive if we get lucky, and it goes off should we take damage. The last bonus isn't really a bonus, as it adds a 100% longer roll cooldown, but I'm not really rolling at all with this setup, so it doesn't really affect me. The two enchantments I have on this armor are Potion Barrier at level 2 and Cooldown at level 2. Of these two enchantments, for this strategy, I would honestly recommend that you at least have the Cooldown enchant. Don't worry about trying to farm Fiery Forge over and over until you get the exact armor that I have with both Potion Barrier and Cooldown. Just focus on trying to get the Reinforced Mail with cooldown. Potion Barrier helps, obviously, so if you get lucky and get a drop with that on it too, then great. Another option here for armor that I found would be either the Mercenary Armor or Scale Mail, which both reduce damage you take by 35%. You could also use Hunter's Armor, which gives you a plus 30% buff to range damage. Honestly though, and I didn't test this, but the Evocation Robe could be super powerful here as well, as it gives you plus 15% movement speed, as well as reduces the cooldowns of your artifacts by 25%. With the Evocation Robe, you really wouldn't need to worry about getting the cooldown enchant on your armor. You could just use something else that may help you in this fight, like Potion Barrier or even something like Cowardice, as honestly with this strategy, most likely you won't be taking any damage. So with Cowardice, if you're at full HP, you'll just deal more damage, which honestly, that might be the way to go. But yeah, what I'm trying to say here is that you have options. Next piece of gear we need to talk about is your ranged weapon. This is probably the most important piece of gear, as it's what you'll be killing the Heart of Ender with. This fight heavily relies on your ability to do ranged damage, which is why I said your melee weapon doesn't really matter here. But it's also why I'm putting so much emphasis on your ranged weapon. Again, this spot is flexible in terms of whether you should use a bow or a crossbow. Personally though, for this fight, I prefer a crossbow. To succeed in this fight, you have to think differently, as it's all about single target damage on the boss. I typically prefer to use a bow during regular levels, but I really feel like the speed and quickness of a crossbow is more useful for this fight, as sometimes with a bow you may be tempted to wind up a fully charged shot, which may waste some of your time. Either way though, both should work. Just make sure you equip a ranged weapon with the most damage you can find. For me, I went with the standard crossbow, which can be found in Cacti Canyon and Obsidian Pinnacle. The one I found had Fuse Shot and Accelerate as its enchantments, which I both enchanted to level 2. For you, if you can get this combo, then that's great, but honestly, I just recommend you get a ranged weapon with Fuse Shot. The extra damage Fuse Shot puts out can be quite useful, and in my case, when I paired it with Accelerate, my crossbow basically became a machine gun that fired explosive rounds, dealing extra damage every 4th shot. Other solid enchantment options here include Power, which will just increase the base damage of your arrows, Growing, which will deal extra damage the further you are from your target, Rapid Fire, which will increase your overall attack speed of your ranged weapon, and maybe even something more creative like Poison Cloud, which has a 30% chance to summon a Poison Cloud that deals extra damage to the boss. One tip I will throw in here though is that if you can, as you're playing through the Obsidian Pinnacle on your way to the final boss, use a bow or crossbow that has the Infinity enchantment on it. This will help save your arrows and will ensure that you have the most arrows possible by the time you reach the final boss. Next, I'll quickly go over the artifacts as these are super important as well. Okay, so the absolute most important artifact you need for this strategy to work is the Totem of Shielding. This thing is a game changer. I honestly had trouble beating this boss until I tried out the Totem of Shielding, and it made this fight so much easier. This artifact can be found in Cacti Canyon and the Desert Temple. If you've unlocked those levels, then you can also try and get it from the Wandering Trader at camp for emeralds. But yeah, this artifact is OP for this fight, and as you'll see here shortly, it basically makes us invincible against the Heart of Ender. Next, you have an artifact flex spot. Personally, I really love the Boots of Swiftness. I hate having a slow character in any video game that I play, so I honestly haven't taken the Boots of Swiftness off my bar since I started playing. But for this fight, it's very useful as at times you may need a bit of mobility to reposition. And I think that's what makes this fight so challenging for a lot of people when they first encounter it. Because up until this final boss fight, there really aren't many instances in this game where your player's positioning matters. You just hack and slash anything that stands in your way, but when you get to this fight, you actually need to move around and be more aware of what's going on than you may be used to. The last artifact I have here is another one I strongly recommend, and that's the Fireworks Arrow. This artifact can be found in the Redstone Mines, High Block Halls, and the secret level Underhalls. This artifact is huge though, as its massive boost to range damage is much needed in this fight. One final thing to note about the artifacts, try to get each of these in the highest power level that you can. For things like the Totem of Shielding, the duration of that ability will increase slightly depending on how high the power level of that artifact is. Same with the Fireworks Arrow, except the increased power level just affects the damage. Okay, so now that you're all set up, let me show you how this strategy works. I'm going to play a clip here of this entire boss fight with first the Arch-Illager and then the Heart of Ender, and I'll be taking you through this strategy. All right, so here we go, guys. You first start out here by jumping onto the little piston platform, and in spawns the Arch-Illager, who is just a little goofball with a magic wand. But anyways, this fight is pretty straightforward. So I've got my firework rocket already loaded up. We're gonna open with that attack here to do the most amount of damage right at the beginning. Boom. And then he's gonna spawn in a bunch of adds. I dropped the Totem of Shielding down right away. And I did some additional damage to him, but you can see that the Totem of Shielding basically deflect. It literally makes you invulnerable to all range damage. Here I caught a little bit, so I popped the potion and was using potion barrier. But I basically just got rid of all the additional mobs that adds there, and then I focused my attention back on the boss. Again, popping another Totem of Shielding. So this is where cooldown is. Having a cooldown enchant, or if you have the evocation robe that has it built in, cooldown is so nice because it's going to allow you to use Totem of Shielding even more. So once again, as soon as the Heart of Ender spawns in, I'm going to be using another firework rocket and avoiding the pink flames. And this is where this Totem of Shielding is just OP, guys. When you're sitting in this bubble, you are basically invulnerable. So that spinning attack that the Heart of Ender does, it does a lot of damage, as does those little faces that pop up and shoot the beams out. So it doesn't matter which attack, whether it's these faces or the spinning ones. If you're sitting inside this Totem of Shielding, which I actually waited here to use again so you could see this one more time, you don't take any damage, and you can literally just sit there and fire your ranged weapon at him and just literally just chunk down his health. It's very, very simple, and it makes this fight so much easier if you have Totem of Shielding. And the Fireworks Arrow just makes, you can get some more higher damage hits in there as well. But yeah, having the cooldown is super clutch because every time I felt like I wanted to use my totem again, it was just about ready. And if I didn't have cooldown on the armor that I was wearing, I would have been waiting for it to come back up, and I could have actually ended up taking some damage. So definitely recommend that enchantment. All right, guys, so that's pretty much it. I hope this video helps you defeat the Heart of Ender if you're currently stuck, or if you haven't gotten there yet, maybe it'll help you prepare for it. I also hope you guys appreciated my thorough dive into the items and enchantments I chose and the additional options I gave you, which should give you some flexibility. I wanted to try and be as detailed as I could be, so I hope that's okay. Of course, there are probably plenty of other ways to defeat this boss, so by no means am I saying you absolutely have to do exactly what I did, but this was the strategy that I used multiple times, and I found it highly effective and thought that maybe one of you playing the game out there could find this strategy helpful. Thanks so much for watching, and if you enjoyed the video and got some value from it, or you learned something, please make sure to leave a like. I'd also like to encourage you to subscribe to my channel and click the bell, as I'll be continuing to create more Minecraft Dungeons content. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.